Sarah never expected to fall in love again at 45. After her divorce 5 years ago, she had thrown herself into her work as a high school English teacher, content to live vicariously through the romantic classics she taught her students. But when a handsome new history teacher named James joined the faculty, Sarah found herself experiencing feelings she thought were long dormant. James was in his mid-30s with salt and pepper hair and kind brown eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He had an easygoing charm that made him popular with both students and staff. Sarah first noticed him in the teacher's lounge, laughing as he regaled a group with stories from his travels abroad. She found herself lingering over her coffee, straining to catch snippets of his tales. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and James began to chat more during their shared free period. She learned he had spent several years teaching in Europe before returning to the States to be closer to his aging parents. He was passionate about history and loved inspiring students to see its relevance to modern life. Sarah found herself opening up about her own love of literature and her dreams of writing a novel someday. "You should do it," James encouraged. "I'd love to read anything you write." His words gave Sarah a little thrill. She hadn't felt this excited about a man's attention in years. But she tried to temper her growing crush. James was younger and probably not interested in a middle-aged divorcee. Besides, workplace romances were frowned upon. She needed to keep things professional. That resolve was tested when they were assigned to chaperone the spring formal together. Sarah agonized over what to wear, finally settling on a midnight blue cocktail dress that hugged her curves. When James saw her, his eyes widened appreciatively. "Wow, you look stunning," he said. Sarah blushed, drinking in the sight of him in a sharp gray suit. They spent the evening circling the dance floor, making sure students behaved. But Sarah was hyper-aware of James's presence, the brush of his arm against hers sending shivers down her spine. At one point, a slow song came on, and James held out his hand. "Care to dance? We should set a good example for the kids," he said with a wink. Sarah's heart raced as James pulled her close. She breathed in his cologne, relishing the feeling of his strong arms around her. For a few blissful minutes, she let herself get lost in the moment. As the song ended, their eyes met. The air between them crackled with electricity. For a breathless second, Sarah thought James might kiss her, but then a student ran up, breaking the spell. In the days that followed, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about that dance. She caught James watching her sometimes with an intensity that made her pulse quicken, but he never made a move, and Sarah was too unsure to take the risk herself. Everything changed the night of the faculty talent show. Sarah had reluctantly agreed to read an original poem. As she took the stage, nerves nearly overwhelmed her, but then she locked eyes with James in the audience. He gave her an encouraging smile, and suddenly the words flowed. She poured her heart into the verses, drawing on all the longing and hope she'd been feeling. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Sarah hurried off stage, face flushed. James was waiting in the wings. "That was incredible," he said, eyes shining. "I had no idea you were such a talented writer." Before Sarah could respond, James cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deeply. She melted into him, all her pent-up desire rushing to the surface. It was several long moments before they broke apart, both breathing heavily. "I've wanted to do that for months," James admitted. "Me too," Sarah confessed. They spent the rest of the evening in a blissful haze, stealing kisses between acts. Sarah felt giddy, like a teenager experiencing her first love. But as reality set in over the next few days, doubts began to creep in. What if the school found out? Would they lose their jobs? And what about the age difference? Would James eventually want someone younger? Sarah's insecurities threatened to overwhelm her newfound happiness. James sensed her pulling away and confronted her after class one day. "Talk to me, Sarah. What's wrong?" She poured out all her fears, and James listened patiently. When she finished, he took her hands in his. "I don't care about any of that," he said firmly. "All I know is that I'm falling in love with you. You're the most amazing woman I've ever met. Please don't push me away." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes at his heartfelt words. She realized she was falling in love too, despite her best efforts not to. They agreed to keep their relationship quiet for now, but to give it a real chance. Over the next few months, Sarah and James grew closer, stealing moments together whenever they could. Weekends were spent exploring local museums and art galleries or curled up reading to each other. Sarah found herself writing more poetry, inspired by her blossoming romance. James encouraged her to pursue her dream of writing a novel. He even surprised her with a writing retreat for her birthday, a cozy cabin in the mountains where she could work uninterrupted. Sarah was touched by his thoughtfulness and support. As summer approached, they faced a crossroads. James had been offered a prestigious fellowship abroad for the next school year. It was an incredible opportunity, but would mean being apart for months. "I won't go if you don't want me to," James told her. "You're more important to me than any job." Sarah's heart swelled at his words, but she knew she couldn't ask him to give up his dreams. "You have to go," she insisted. "We'll make it work somehow." They spent every possible moment together in the weeks leading up to James's departure. The night before he left, they stayed up talking until dawn, neither wanting to let go. "I love you," James murmured as he held her close. "Wait for me?" "Always," Sarah promised through her tears. The months apart were difficult, but they stayed connected through daily video chats and long emails. Sarah threw herself into writing her novel, pouring all her emotions onto the page. James read each chapter as she finished, offering encouragement and feedback. When he finally returned the following summer, their reunion was joyous. They could barely keep their hands off each other, making up for lost time. But there was also a new depth to their connection, strengthened by the distance they'd overcome. As they lay tangled together that first night, James propped himself up on one elbow. "I've been thinking a lot while I was away," he began. Sarah's stomach fluttered nervously. "I don't ever want to be apart from you again," James continued. He reached into the nightstand and pulled out a small box. Sarah gasped as he opened it to reveal a sparkling diamond ring. "Sarah, will you marry me?" Tears of happiness streamed down Sarah's face as she nodded yes. James slipped the ring on her finger and sealed the moment with a passionate kiss. They were married in a small ceremony that fall, surrounded by close friends and family. Sarah's students were thrilled to learn their favorite teacher had found love, especially when they realized it was with the popular Mr. Stevens. As Sarah exchanged vows with James, she marveled at how much her life had changed in just over a year. She had gone from resigned spinster to blushing bride, all because she opened her heart to unexpected love. The newlyweds honeymooned in Paris, spending their days exploring the city and their nights lost in each other. Sarah was in awe of the romance of it all, strolling hand in hand along the Seine, sharing croissants at sidewalk cafes, kissing atop the Eiffel Tower. One evening, as they sipped wine at a candlelit bistro, James surprised her with news. "I got a call from my agent today," he said. "Remember that historical novel I've been working on? Well, a publisher wants it. They're offering a 3-book deal." Sarah squealed with delight, throwing her arms around him. James had been writing in his spare time for years, but had never found success until now. She was thrilled his talent was finally being recognized. "We should celebrate," she said with a coy smile. "I think I packed some champagne." They rushed back to their hotel room, barely making it through the door before clothes started flying. Their lovemaking was frenzied and passionate, both riding high on James's good news. Afterwards, as they lay catching their breath, Sarah had an idea. "We should write a book together," she suggested. "Your historical expertise combined with my flair for romance, it could be amazing." James's eyes lit up. "I love it. We could be the next great writing duo." They spent the rest of the honeymoon brainstorming plot ideas, getting swept up in the excitement of their new joint venture. By the time they returned home, they had the outline for an epic historical romance spanning centuries. The next few years were a whirlwind as Sarah and James balanced teaching, writing, and married life. They converted the spare bedroom into a cozy office where they would write side by side in the evenings. Sometimes they got more done than others, often getting distracted by stolen kisses that turned heated. Their first novel together was published to critical acclaim, praised for its richly drawn characters and sweeping scope. Sarah was amazed to see her name on the bestseller list. Fan mail poured in from readers touched by the love story at the heart of the book. "We make a pretty good team," James said as they celebrated at their book launch party. Sarah couldn't agree more. In James, she had found not just a lover and husband, but a true partner who supported all her dreams. As they settled into their new life as successful authors, Sarah and James began to talk about starting a family. At 48, Sarah worried she had waited too long. But after months of trying, she was overjoyed to learn she was pregnant. The pregnancy wasn't easy at her age. Sarah battled terrible morning sickness and fatigue. But James was there every step of the way, rubbing her feet and indulging her odd cravings. He even took a sabbatical from teaching to help care for her in the difficult final months. When their daughter Lily was born, Sarah and James were instantly smitten. Parenthood was an adjustment, especially as older first-time parents. But they tackled the challenges together, taking turns with night feedings and diaper changes. Sarah worried at first about balancing motherhood with her writing career, but she found that Lily inspired her in new ways. She started working on a series of children's books, pouring all her maternal love into the stories. As Lily grew, Sarah marveled at how much she looked like James, with his warm brown eyes and mischievous smile. She had Sarah's creative spirit, though, always coming up with imaginative games and stories. One night, as they tucked 5-year-old Lily into bed, she asked for a new bedtime story. "Tell me how you and Daddy fell in love," she requested. Sarah and James exchanged fond smiles, remembering those early days of stolen glances and building attraction. "Well," Sarah began, "it all started when a handsome new teacher came to Mommy's school." They took turns sharing the story of their romance, editing out the steamier parts for young ears. Lily listened with rapt attention, sighing happily at the happy ending. "I want to find love like that someday," she declared. "You will, sweetheart," James assured her, "when the time is right." As they left Lily's room, Sarah pulled James close. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" he asked. "For loving me. For giving me this beautiful life and family. I never imagined I could be this happy." James kissed her tenderly. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. You've made all my dreams come true." They made love that night with a renewed passion, marveling at how their connection had only deepened over the years. Sarah felt truly blessed to have found her soulmate, even if it had come later in life than she expected. As Sarah drifted off to sleep in James's arms, she reflected on their journey. From cautious colleagues to secret lovers to husband and wife to parents, each new chapter had brought fresh joys and challenges. But through it all, their love had remained steady and true. She thought about the novel they were currently working on, a sweeping multi-generational saga exploring how love endures through the ages. Sarah realized their own love story was still being written, with countless adventures still to come. The next morning, Sarah woke early and slipped out of bed, careful not to wake James. She brewed a pot of coffee and settled at her desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Inspiration struck and she began to type, the words flowing effortlessly. Hours passed in a creative blur. When James finally shuffled in, hair adorably mussed from sleep, Sarah had nearly finished a new chapter. "You've been busy," he observed, dropping a kiss on her head. "Care to share?" Sarah's eyes sparkled as she turned to face him. "I think I just figured out the perfect ending for our book." James raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Do tell." She pulled him down for a lingering kiss. "How about we act it out instead?" she suggested with a sultry smile. James grinned and scooped her up in his arms, carrying her back to the bedroom. Some of their best writing sessions started this way, passion igniting creativity. Later, as they lay tangled in the sheets, Sarah shared her idea for the ending. James listened intently, offering suggestions to refine the concept. Soon, they were both caught up in the excitement, tossing around dialogue and plot points. "We should get this down while it's fresh," James said, reaching for a notebook. Sarah laughed and pulled him back down. "In a minute. I'm not done with you yet." They spent the rest of the morning alternating between lovemaking and brainstorming, the line between life and art delightfully blurred. By the time Lily woke up demanding pancakes, they had mapped out the final chapters of their novel. As James whipped up breakfast, Sarah marveled at how seamlessly their personal and professional lives had merged. Their love story had become the foundation for their writing career, each new book infused with the depth of emotion they shared. Over a leisurely family breakfast, they discussed plans for the day. Lily wanted to visit the zoo, while Sarah and James needed to work on their book deadline. They decided to compromise. A morning at the zoo followed by writing time in the afternoon, while Lily had a play date. At the zoo, Sarah watched James and Lily cooing over the baby animals, her heart swelling with love. She snapped a few pictures, thinking they might inspire a new children's book series. That afternoon, as Lily played at a friend's house, Sarah and James settled into their shared office. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, occasionally bouncing ideas off each other. Sarah loved these quiet moments of creative companionship. As the sun began to set, James stretched and suggested they call it a day. "We made good progress," he said. "How about we open a bottle of wine and relax on the patio?" Sarah readily agreed. They curled up together on the porch swing, sipping wine and watching the sky turn vibrant shades of pink and orange. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Sarah asked suddenly. "Before me and Lily and all of this?" She gestured vaguely at their home and life they'd built. James considered for a moment. "Honestly? No. I loved traveling and my freedom back then, but this, you and Lily and our work together, this is everything I never knew I always wanted." Sarah's eyes welled up at his heartfelt words. She nestled closer, overcome with gratitude for the unexpected twists of fate that had brought them together. As darkness fell, they reluctantly went inside to start dinner and pick up Lily. The rest of the evening passed in a pleasant blur of family time, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, stealing a few quiet moments alone. That night, as Sarah drifted off to sleep in James's arms, she felt utterly content. Their love story might not be the stuff of dramatic Hollywood movies, but it was real and lasting, the kind of steady, deepening love that grew stronger with each passing year. She thought about all the chapters still to come in their shared story, watching Lily grow up, pursuing new creative projects, growing old together. Sarah couldn't wait to experience it all by James's side. In her last moments of consciousness, Sarah made a mental note to jot down some of these musings in the morning. After all, real life often provided the best inspiration for their novels. With a contented sigh, she snuggled closer to James and let sleep claim her, dreaming of love stories yet to be written.